one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Any additions or changes to the agenda proposed? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Then we've got Ron and James online. Are you both able to vote electronically?
Yeah, I'm good to go.
Okay. So I'm going to move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and second. We'll go to our computers.
My computer's not responding. I left one meeting and went to left the link in and joined this and it's not.
Yeah.
Yes.
We can take a break.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I'm good to go.
That works.
Good to have the tech time.
Right?
Motion passes 7-0. Move on to the public comment section. Jay?
I didn't sign up to it, but I'll just briefly, I got on the tail end of your conversation, and a couple of years ago I had a discussion with Mr. Reed, before he retired, about this very same thing. We do see a direct correlation between the activities a student participates in and how they do well, how they do in school. But what we don't know is, those students who are busy, like the plumber student, is he there because his parents are encouraging him to study, prepare? And we talked about that it'd be a great project for a grad student out of KU or in Emporia, someplace. A good project is to say, what is the direct correlation and how can we measure that? Grad student, he needs a project, and that'd be a good project for him.
Good idea.
No other public comments? We'll move on to written communications. One administrative report, start at BES. Questions for Darla in the elementary school?
I heard great things about the programs.
Yeah, the second grader was really cute.
Yeah, I heard it was really good.
Okay, we'll move on to the BMS report. And this report actually talks about what you just mentioned, about the high GPAs, the students involved in activities. And
So this is from the fall up to this point, and then again in May, we'll have the whole list of all our activities broken down to band, choir as well will be part of that. And one thing you'll notice is pretty routinely, if you're involved, you're a 3.5 or higher. Very routinely whenever that happens.
Dodgeball for Heart always is a fun one to watch and participate.
Okay, we all survived.
Yeah.
A lot of soreness the next day, but we survived.
Any questions for middle school? Move on to high school. Questions, comments? The forensics meet was fun.
Yes.
A lot of people.
She did a
A lot
great
of
job.
people. She was very good.
It was.
I was a little bit judged too.
So was I.
Yeah.
How do you pick a favorite?
Might have Mr. Wilson mention, we hosted the first ever for us baseball and softball jamboree.
Yes, this is,
And,
this is the first year you can host jamborees in all these different sports. Before it was just football, and so now you can host a jamboree in anything. So we hosted the first ever baseball softball jamboree. We had 3 schools here, each one had a softball and a baseball team. And we got repeated compliments on just how great the facility is, both from people from Burlington, because it was the first time we had the parking lot, the first time we had the paved portion and all that. And just the ease with which we can host things like that with all the turf, because we were able to rotate, like teams could warm up on the football field and then right away rotate onto the softball and baseball field, do it efficiently. And then I just thought it was cool too, during games, if you looked down at the football field, it was like 50 kids playing duck, duck, goose and football and all the other things, like just everything being used by so many different people and so many cars in the parking lot. So it was a huge success. It was fantastic.
And we just did find out we are hosting high school softball regionals.
Yes, and who's in it, and that'll officially come out here in the next couple weeks. But yeah, we're hoping we host at least baseball or softball, either because we get it every year or because what happened last year and it gets rained out somewhere else and comes here. So.
It's good to bring people into the community.
Special education report.
I don't really have a whole lot to add, just that, since then, we've had a few other resignations, but, we also got some interviews lined up, so things kind of keep working. Some of those aren't for till the end of the year, so we have time to prepare for next year, but, we also did go to a career fair, at Pitt State, and there's been one person from there that I've been in contact with about getting up here, possibly for next year even. But we were able to contact the kids that are 2 years out even, so, and I've emailed all of them since we've been back, because really what we found when we go is you're almost there for the 2 year out, not for the next year people, because so many of them already have jobs.
So they were declared either red or yellow, and there were a lot of yellows, which meaning they had something finished in the fall. And then we were given the name of an individual to contact at Pitt State to say, hey, is there any way that they could come in, we could pay them X number amount and still do your classes? And so that's everybody. Very few reds of kids that were ready to be hired right now. But
But a
there
lot
are
of them
several
have
for
jobs,
next year.
so. Anyways, I'm pretty hopeful, especially in terms of, certified positions. But
Okay, we'll move on to technology report. Questions for the man behind the camera?
I'm good.
Kind of share that, I like to see the comments about how the technology is being used. That's, I mean, I like to see that, just for knowing that it's getting utilized well.
Well, and it's each month to see how different teachers use it differently.
Right.
It's-
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's nice to see the creative ways that.
right, how they're all utilizing it differently.
Speaking of, are we relaying that information to the other teachers? If a teacher comes with a unique way of doing it, are we getting that information to other teachers as an idea?
Yes, I mean, we often have, we'll share out different things either through email or through in-service days, yeah.
Move on to superintendent's report.
We have continued to look at the document that we have, the strategic planning document that we created through numerous meetings last year. The item that I kind of want to look at is recruitment and retention information. Kind of over the past 8 years, the tuition reimbursement program that we've utilized with the paraprofessionals, instructional aides, trying to kind of grow our own program. That has allowed us to, have 2 teachers in this program. We have 1 other that's going through the program currently in that grow your own situation that can be very, very helpful for us. And, that's again, with people, there's just fewer people getting involved in education, kind of like what Matt and Lindsay talked a little bit about. But we just want to try to continue to do that for that recruitment, retention, growing our own. We've also tried to improve our salaries, whether it be with licensed employees, whether it be with classified employees. We've done a lot of improvement with our hourly wages and our base pay from 8 years ago. Again, just trying to do better with benefits and leave situation and health insurance and so on and so forth. You know, it's a challenge, obviously, we're trying to do, you know, as well as we can and trying to move the needle forward with all aspects as far as the financial piece goes. Facility improvements, again, are very important to recruit and retain employees. I had a good conversation with the Silver Lake superintendent just about 3 months ago, and he was talking about how they struggled to find an art teacher. And he said they offered it to somebody and didn't get it. They went to their second choice, didn't get it. I said, first of all, you have 2 choices for art, that's a pretty good deal. And he said, yeah, and he said, but when they didn't get it, they couldn't fill it, they went back and he called the 2 people when they didn't accept it. And he asked why. He said, well, we had other offers, and quite frankly, your facilities were not anywhere close to where our other offers were. So facilities are important. People are looking for nice places to be, just good environments, good learning atmosphere, good place for people to be and work, and good working conditions. That has a very, very important factor, you know, the happiness factor, if you will, satisfaction, job satisfaction piece. Again, we've done a lot of different things. The Burlington Early Learning Center has helped us with a number of people with staff being able to have a place for daycare. And you know, that's important. Hopefully it helps us to recruit, you know, employees to our district. We actually need more openings, more spaces, because we could use, again, a number of other openings for our kids. We're at 55 now at the daycare, just this most recent number, with about a 45, 46, 47 waiting list right now. And so, again, the more we can do to hopefully make, you know, our place enticing for people to come. Daycare is important, housing is important. There's a lot of different things that are very important. Nice schools, good hospitals, water park for the kids to play in the summer, recreation center. We've got a lot of those things. We just kind of need to keep working on that recruitment and retention for staff. So that's very, very important. Again, you get really good people who are low maintenance, who do a great job for the kids. Makes everything just that much better, that much more smooth with the process. So anyway, next item, questions or comments on the strategic planning document? We're continuing to look at that, and that's just something that we'll just continue to discuss and talk about. If you guys have thoughts or ideas on how we can do even bigger and better things, you know, we can talk about it here at the table, or we can discuss it when we have our retreat dates, or a 5th Monday, try that again, 5th Monday meeting, or, you know, whenever, so.
I do have a question on number 1. The person that's in the program right now, are they finishing in May?
No,
Is that
you're
another
one,
year?
so it'd be
Okay,
one
I
more
couldn't
year.
remember.
Good question, yes. And doing quite well, doing very well with grades, doing very well with their program, so yes, very positive. Okay, we talked a little bit about this at the linkage, again, the future possible building project that we may look at. I've shared with you a couple of different options here in board docs. There could be other options. I guess I just, more than anything, kind of want to throw this out there for discussion for you guys on kind of what maybe, if there is a next step, are we kind of in a holding pattern? I'm going to kind of throw out, you know, potential again for, you know, what we were looking at, and maybe to potentially have a new building. We've talked about add-on renovation. We've talked about the different levels that we could be putting in a new building. Is it a birth to grade 5? Is it a pre-KK to grade 5? Is it a pre-KK to grade 4? We had those discussions a little bit with our site council linkage. I don't know if there's, what I guess I'm kind of asking the direction that you guys would like to see going forward. Do we need a special work session meeting to discuss this? Again, I'll throw out just for you guys.
I mean, I would think we need a session with all the board members, because there was only, there was 3 or 4 of us that were advisory committees, so I think we need to have meetings with the whole board.
I would think a meeting with the whole board to make sure everybody's on the same page and discuss it, and then I think the next step after that would be, I personally think we should have a town hall meeting that we announce with plenty of time so people have the ability to come in and express their opinions and all their emotions and everything about it. mean, I think we know the spread of what that will be. You know, from the I fully support it to you're not raising my taxes $1, and we're gonna get everything in between, but I'd rather them know that we want to hear their opinions than us just move on without listening to what the community wants.
I think the advisory committee served a great purpose in getting some of the message out there, but there's, some of the feedback I've got is that, this is solely contingent on if the CHIPS plan comes in, and that is absolutely not the fact.
Right.
And we need to do something to address facilities of BES and also prepare for our future, so we need to do that in the most efficient way possible, whether that's a new building or renovation, so. So you make sure we have those discussions.
Greg, if you're asking, like, would you, what did he say?
City agrees.
Are you asking for our opinion on these options here?
I put some options down as possibilities. Now, again, these are just possible options. Nothing, again, to me, it's what the community wants. It's what you as a board want and what the community wants. It's not what Craig Marshall wants, because it's what the community wants. We serve, I say, the community, so.
I think it would be, I mean, if somebody wants to express their opinion, obviously, but I think we should probably all get together and talk beforehand, because I haven't been to the past couple of the meetings for this. So I would like to hear if something came up that we hadn't discussed previously.
It's Ron.
Ron, do you have any comments or questions?
I like the town hall meeting idea. I think we will get more of a wide range of views than we're getting at the smaller meetings we can have. That's what I support.
And I think that probably needs to happen at one of the schools, not here, so that there's room for everybody.
I would think we'd do it at the elementary school, it would make sense.
Yeah.
Or potentially at the high school where there'd be a bigger, you know, that multimedia room there, the ideal room might work. It just depends on how big of a crowd we might have.
The elementary does give you the ability to show people the current status of everything.
That's
So-
why I think it would be good to have it there.
Mhm.
Do you think we need a work session with the board, just a work session where we don't take any action or anything, and then a town hall type scenario, or are
I
you
think
guys?
so.
I do.
I think so, because I think we
I
need
would
to,
recommend that, Craig.
Okay,
yeah, I think we need to discuss
right,
what we're wanting to present to the public,
perfect.
Right,
so.
I think either way, I mean, we might not have 100% agreement, but we need to have an idea of what we're proposing, not go to the public with 5 ideas
Right.
and tell them to pick which one, because
We will have an early April board meeting on the 8th, because again, we pushed back this one due to spring break, and it just so happens it's the earliest possible day it can be in April, so it may be a challenge to try to have it before the next board meeting. It may be really
I know.
tough, especially you guys are really, those, the Wolf Creek are really, really busy with outage, so I'll work on trying to schedule, and I'll shoot you guys a couple possible dates for that, okay? Okay.
Yeah, I'll be on
Very
the
good.
list.
We received an excellent audit report from our KSDE auditors, and again, this was, and we also have Kyle here from Jared Gilmore Phillips that does our individual audit, so, again, very pleased with the information. This is all of the buildings, the directors, the staff in our buildings that put together the information, our tech staff is involved, counselors, everybody is involved in our September 20th count date. Again, just an excellent audit. She said it was one of the easiest and one of the best audits that she's had through the State Department. And so anyway, that was really, really good news. And Kyle will be here to share some information on our individual audit from Jared Gilmore Phillips tonight. Open enrollment is something we've talked about. The legislature has done some changes as far as what they proposed last year to what they're saying now. We are working on that. We have a work session with our administrators this week to go over a couple of the adjustments that are occurring. We will be looking to get you some information on what the new information, the new rules that are in play here in terms of enrollment counts, capacities, things like that. So just to give you an example of one change, before they said any out-of-district student would count against your out-of-district enrollment, your seats. They now have heard enough from last year to this year that I think that when they got back home to their home areas, that the people did not like that at all. And so they are now changing to where the people that are currently enrolled in your district from out of district they would stay. They would be quote unquote, I guess, grandfathered in if we wanted to keep those people. They will not count against your out-of-district capacity seats. So it's.
So they wouldn't have to worry about losing their spot in the
Correct.
district, is the
Correct.
important part, right?
Exactly. So that's, and again, and as long as they're doing a good job with attendance, grades, behaviors, things like that, we want to keep those students, so anyway. So having said that, we will have some information, I'll probably try to get that out to you in Friday notes as quick as I can, maybe ahead of that April 8th meeting, so you, if you have any questions, we can, you can be aware of those and you can talk to me about those in anticipation, hopefully having something ready, because we do have to have something published by May 1. The changes from the legislature have really caused us to kind of hit pause button on this, unfortunately, and so I guess, again, wish we would, wish this would have came about a lot sooner than now, but we will have something in preparation for, I say, the April 8th meeting for you guys to look at. And that's all I have. Any questions that you guys have for me?
You guys got any questions online there for Craig?
I do not either.
Move on to board reports. Anything board members wish to share, add? Anything? Move to the audit report.
You guys are just itching to get me up here. Yes, exactly. Kyle and his crew from Jared Gilmore Phillips do a tremendous job for us. They work really well with our staff. Cannot say enough good things about them, and like I say, their work with us. We appreciate I would say the collaboration and the constructive criticism, the feedback we get from Kyle and his people greatly, because we want to do even better. We want to get better and improve and growing. So Kyle, thank you.
Well, we appreciate those comments, for sure. Like I said, I'm going to walk through your blue pack here, just kind of walk you through kind of what happened during the year. In the front, there's some letters. We'll hit those at the end of the presentation. So we start on page 1. Pages 1 through 3 is the independent audit report. In this packet, along with a couple other reports at the back of this, this is the only thing that actually belongs to us as auditors. Everything else in here is the district's information, district's numbers, and we just take it and put it in the prescribed format by KMAG. These first 3 paragraphs are kind of your most important ones. That first one is what we audit, which is the accompanying fund summary statement of regulatory basis receipts, expenditures, and unencumbered cash balances for the year ended June 30, 2023. The next paragraph talks about an adverse opinion on U.S. GAAP financials. Since the district elects to follow the KMAG, Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide, which is mainly a cash basis of accounting, we have to issue an adverse opinion on GAAP financials because you have material differences in your financial statement. You'd have debt show up on there, accounts receivable, things like that. With KMAG, you just simply have cash and accounts payable. Third paragraph, that is the most important one, and that's that unmodified opinion on regulatory basis of accounting. We issued the unmodified opinion on the district's financial statement. We believe that the numbers presented herein are a material, accurate representation of what happened during the year. Slang term, clean opinion, the best opinion that the district can receive on their financial statement. Next 2 paragraphs kind of talk about a little bit more about that adverse and unmodified opinion. And then we roll into management's responsibilities and our responsibilities as auditors. And then we talk about some supplementary information as well. With KMAG, there's some additional schedules at the back of this audit report, which we'll see that are required. Also talks about how we put last year's information in here, kind of give you comparative purposes of what happened one year to the next. And then also this final paragraph down there at the bottom of page 3 talks about other reporting required by government auditing standards. Since the district receives and spends a large amount of federal grants, we have to have what they call a single audit. This paragraph just basically says that we include all those reports within this packet. You can actually do those separately. We just choose to put it together just for ease of access. So if you turn the page over to pages 4 and 5, this is statement 1, kind of a quick snapshot of what happened during the year for the district. Over there on the far left are all the various funds of the district. And then you've got your beginning unencumbered cash balance, or your cash carryover for budget purposes. Next column is going to be your receipts, money coming in the door, and then your expenditures, money going out the door, to get that ending unencumbered cash balance. Since the district follows KMAG and the Kansas municipality, there's about a 10-page checklist of some various statutes and regulations they have to adhere to. One of those is that as you glance through that column, each fund should end in a positive cash balance. As you're glancing through there, about 2/3 of the way down, you'll notice there are 2 that are negative. The state recognizes those are grant funds. You gotta spend those up front before you get that reimbursement back. So that is allowable at state level. So we have to report those, but then we also cite the statute that says that it's allowable. That next column are those accounts payable. This is kind of that special caveat of KMAG. These are those bills that are paid in July and August for services attributable back to June 30, just to kind of get those expenditures in the right period for budget purposes. And then finally on the far right is your ending cash per bank, essentially. And then if you turn to page 5 down at the bottom, you can see those totals are broken out by the various accounts held by the district. I always like to point out there at the bottom is that less agency funds line. Essentially, those are funds that the district holds in their account, but they don't belong to the district. Some of your activity funds, your student activity funds, things like that, which we'll see a schedule of those at the end of this as well. Turn over to page 6. Now we get to the footnotes. I'm just going to go through here and kind of highlight a few of these that are kind of the most important one. Footnote number 1 is mainly talks about that KMAG, kind of what it is, Kansas budget law, things like that. Really doesn't change much year in, year out. It's good to reread it, kind of re-familiarize yourself with it. But the biggest thing I want to highlight in this footnote is on page 8, under that numbered list. There's a new paragraph in there that talks about that revenue neutral rate. Since this was the first year with the budget that had to adhere to that, where we just cite whether the district had a revenue neutral rate or did not, which the district did have a rate for this budget year. Footnote number 2 on page 9, stewardship, compliance, and accountability. This footnote kind of relates to that checklist that I mentioned earlier. That long paragraph, it talks about those negative cash violations, as well as cite those statutes that make it allowable. And then we also, the last sentence there, talks about budget. You know, did you have any funds that were over budget? Of which there was one, which was the Rec Commission Fund. This just happens due to the fact that sometimes you collect more than you budgeted to pay out, and the district just feels obligated to pay those funds to the Rec Commission. Really nothing major. I mean, it's just a result of paying the Rec Commission the funds you collected for them, but we just have to report it in the audit report. Footnote number 3 is deposits and investments. Biggest thing on here is page 10, that last paragraph. Biggest thing to highlight is just that all of the district's funds at year ends were secured at year end, whether that was through FDIC coverage or pledged securities. So just meeting that requirement to have all your funds secured. Another one I want to highlight is footnote number 5. That's the finance lease obligation. This one's kind of a new one with that turf lease. Here we just break out those future payments on that lease. You can see in that little table broken out by the years. And then we subtract out that imputed interest to kind of get your principal balance on that lease. And then we subtract out the current maturities, kind of give you an idea of what those long-term, those ones that are due after 1 year. Turn the page to page 11. You kind of see that same information in more of a table format. Here we just break it down, listing it out, you know, your beginning balance, any additions, reductions in payments, as well as down below, kind of an important tool, that's that future payment schedule, which breaks it out between principal and interest. Just a really good tool to have when it comes to looking at the budget, things like that. Give you an idea of kind of when those payments are coming due, kind of when those bigger payments might be coming due too, if those are part of the agreement. On the page, we'll hit footnote number 7. This is the Capers footnote. The first page, they're on page 12, and carrying over to page 13. It's just a lot of information, it's kind of what's going on at the state level with Capers, what the legislation is doing, things like that. But actually on page 13, that second paragraph, we just talked about how much was remitted on behalf of the district's employees, which was a little over $1.3 million. And then always that scariest footnote in here, that net pension liability. That's the amount that the district would be on the hook for if Capers were to ever quit being funded by the state. Obviously, we never see that happening, but you can see that number's pretty large, a little over $13 million. Thankfully, hopefully it never happens, but that's just due to Capers being underfunded at the state level. Another footnote that I want to touch on is footnote 11. The ones that I'm skipping over really are just kind of cookie cutter footnotes, really don't change much year in and year out. Just kind of highlighting the ones that do kind of have some changes in them. This is interfund transfers. Always the biggest thing to take away here is just that all the transfers between funds have statutory authority to be made. And then finally, footnote number 12, subsequent events, kind of anything large or out of the ordinary that happens from the end of the fiscal year to when we issued the audit. And we just disclosed that you had agreed to a bid for some boilers at the high school, and just disclose that amount, just because it was kind of material for the audit. Now we're going to get into that supplementary information that I talked about earlier. Page 16 is Schedule 1. This is your budgetary comparison schedule. Far left side lists out all the budgeted funds of the district. Then you've got your certified budget, and then also your adjustments to comply with the legal max, which just comes from the state based on your enrollment. Next column is your adjustments for qualifying budget credits. These are what they call budget extenders, essentially reimbursed expenses, grant proceeds, loan proceeds, anything that you're spending money on, but you've got reimbursements coming in that the district isn't having to fund themselves. You add those three columns to get to that total budget, which we compare to those expenditures charged to each of those grants. And then you look at that far right column, that's your most important one. One time that a negative number is a good thing. And here as you glance through, you'll see just that one that we had with the rec commission, where we just paid them out their money. Starting on the next page, page 17, all the way back to page 41 are the individual fund summary statement schedules. Not going to go through these with you, but really good information in here. Just goes into more detail, all the individual funds, and just breaks it down by the various sources, federal aid grants, tax dollars, things like that, as well as breaks it out into the expenditures by the categories required by KSDE. This is where that prior year information is in here, just to kind of give you comparative purposes of what's going on one year to the next, as well as your budget by line item and your variance over under by line item. I always like to highlight in there, when you look at that variance over under by line item for budget, you're bound in total by the fund, not by individual line items. So you'll see some big swings between items, but overall you're just looking in total at the fund is the big kicker of what you're trying to focus on. All the way back on page 42 and 43, we get into those agency funds that I talked about earlier. Here we just listed all those out, all those different activities that the district's holding those funds. And then we just have kind of the activity for the year, your beginning balance, receipts, disbursements, and your ending balances. And then on page 44, kind of the same thing, except these are those district activity funds that actually do belong to the district, things like gate receipts as well as other items. Turn the page, now we get to that federal information, that single audit step. Page 45 and 46, schedule of expenditures of federal awards. This just basically breaks out all the grants received by the district between the various departments of the government, Department of Ed, Department of Ag, etc. And then we have your pass-through identifying number, the federal CFDA number, which is just a 5-digit number that the government assigns to each grant. Provided to subrecipients if you received any grants and then in turn pass those on, your cash receipts, and then your disbursements. So this just breaks it down, all those federal grants. The ones that we did end up testing were your IDEA grant and then your food service. In that testing, we look at things like expenses, making sure those are allowable, meal reports, making sure that you're reporting the exact number of meals that you're serving, verification, making sure that you're testing, did people's income change, did it affect their status, things of those nature. If you turn over to the following page, page 47 and 48, this is the Government Auditing Standards Report, mainly focused on internal control over financial reporting. I don't spend a lot of time on this report because we don't issue an opinion in there. If we would have issues with things such as banks not reconciling, payroll not tying out, this is where they'd be listed. We didn't have any of those issues when it came to completing the audit. Good to read that, kind of see those things we might talk about, but I don't spend a lot of time on it because there isn't anything major to report. The next 3 pages are your report on compliance of your major programs. These are those grants that we tested that I just talked about. This report is set up in that same exact format as the very first report we looked at, where those opinion paragraphs are at the beginning. That second one is that most important one, where we talk about our opinion, in which we say that we believe that based on our testing, the district complied with all the federal requirements for the grants that we tested. And then it just goes into that same format, that basis for opinion, management's responsibility, auditor's responsibility, and so on and so forth. Turn to page 52, you'll tell me just skip those reports next time and just go straight to this page. It's got all that information just in a quick snapshot. Up at the top we talk about what the auditor's opinion was on the financial statement, adverse on GAAP, unmodified on the regulatory basis. You've got your internal controls over financial reporting, of which there were none. Any issues with federal awards, which there were none. That opinion on our compliance with major federal awards. Any audit findings? No. The breakdown of those grants that we tested, like I mentioned. And then I always like to point out this one on here too, that auditee qualified as low risk auditee. It'll always be no for a district. One of the requirements to meet that is that you have to follow GAAP or a state required basis of accounting. KMAG's optional, and the district elects to follow that, so it's always going to be no, you're going to be high risk. All it does is just change the percentage of grant dollars that we actually have to test as part of the audit. So really no impact on the district, just on the auditor. And then finally, the last thing to highlight there is page 53, which are your prior audit findings. There was 2 of them last year that we had. One of those was misreported checks. It stemmed from these split checks that you used. That has since been stopped. We didn't have any issues with that in 2023, so that issue's been resolved. And then the second one being some meal reporting. We just had some meal reports that the numbers weren't matching up, and we didn't have any issues when we tested those meal reports in 2023. So happy to report that none of those issues reared their ugly heads again in the next year. Finally, we're going to touch on that packet of letters there at the front. First letter is 2 pages on the letterhead. This is what they call the presentation letter. Essentially, in the past, if we had issues in the audit and getting it done, disagreements with management, things of those nature, we just could disclose those orally to the board. Now we're just required to put those in writing. We didn't have any issues. We always enjoyed coming here and working with your staff. But I encourage you to read through them, kind of see those things we might talk about. But like I said, nothing major to report there. That third page are your audit adjustments. Really, once again, nothing major to point out here, just some transfer adjustments, and then to report a bank account, the coffee can account, where that money flows in and flows out at the end of the year. So nothing major that I feel like needs to be pointed out as different or unusual for the district. Finally, these last couple pages that are front and back letter is what we call the management representation letter. Each one of those numbered points we should have talked about at some point during the audit with a member of the board, a member of the district management, things of those nature. So we kind of like to call this one the reminder letter. Really good to reread it each year, kind of stick those points in the back of your mind. So as the year goes on, if some of that stuff does happen, you can make sure to tell the auditor about it. That being said, do we have any kind of questions or comments? I know that's kind of fast, but try to be as concise as I can.
Good job.
I like to see that any issues that we have be resolved, so.
We definitely take their recommendations and try to
Yeah.
come up with a fix, a solution. They're good to work with to help us. If we're not quite sure what we need to do, we work together, so.
Any questions?
Thank you.
All right, everybody have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
See what I say, Thomas?
Do we need to make a motion to approve that?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2022-2023 audit as presented.
Motion second to approve 2022-23 audit was presented. And second, vote on computers. Motion passes 7-0. Move on to contract approvals and appointments. And it is for maintaining Jared Gilmore Phillips as the district auditor for next year, or this current year. Get the audit next year.
And their fees did go up slightly from last year. What's that number? Looking here. $1,000, yes, from $9,000 to $10,000.
Make a motion to approve the engagement letter with Jared Gilmore Phillips, PA, for the 2023-2024 fiscal audit, in the amount not to exceed $10,000.
I'll second.
Motion second, we can vote on our computers. Alpha, if anyone would like an executive session regarding 9 Bravo. We don't need one, or don't feel we need one, we can just move on to the 9 Bravo agenda item. Okay, can I hear any motion for executive session? We'll go to 9 Bravo, final resolution of termination. Motion there.
So you need a motion?
No, there's one here.
Is it possible motion?
I move to adopt the final resolution of termination of the teaching and supplemental contracts with Michael Vanderwood.
I'll second.
Motion and second, we can vote on it first. Motion passes 5-2.
Nothing on 10A, no, nothing needed, unless anybody has anything.
Move on to 11A, executive session for negotiations.
And that would only be if you feel like, I've shared with you a couple of documents. If you feel like we need to discuss for a few minutes before the March 31 letter, actually March 31 is.
We'll receive their letter
Yeah.
on the 31st, and our letters, yeah.
Yeah.
If there's any need. Okay.
Ron or James, do you want to have any discussion regarding negotiations?
I'm good with it.
Okay. Move on to the debriefing closing items.
Yeah.
I like to hear any of the mistakes that we tripped up on last year were corrected for this year and had a clean audit. That's really nice to see.
Absolutely.
I don't know if this is appropriate time to talk about it or not, but, can we get the school board meetings placed on the school calendar? I had several people contact me saying they were having trouble finding when the school board meeting would start. And that's where they were primarily looking, and I unfortunately
Are you
get.
talking like the school calendar that has the days that we all look at for the kids going to school and stuff?
Yes. I made the mistake of saying, no, they're at the second Monday, and then of course this time it was the third Monday, so I had to get on and apologize.
On the district calendar.
On the district calendar.
It was missing on the web.
We will work on that. Good point, thank you.
Okay, meeting's adjourned.